Hey, Marco D'Angelo here from WagerTalk TV. We're going to preview some of the top contenders for this year's Kentucky Derby. But be sure to check back Kentucky Derby week on Wednesday. After we got post positions drawn, we'll have our full Kentucky Derby show where we break down everything in detail. But let's get into some of the top contenders for this year's Kentucky Derby. You got to start with journalism. He's trained by Mike McCarthy and going to be ridden by Umberto Rispoli. This horse will be the favorite in the Kentucky Derby. He's won four of his 5 career starts, including his last 4 starts in a row. The horse is getting better with every start. He has the highest Beyer speed figure of any horse in this year's Kentucky Derby. Now, his strength is his tactical speed. He'll be able to break from the gate and line up where he wants, whether he wants to be close to the pace or just off the pace if they're going too fast. His weakness, well, there's not many, but the only thing I can tell you is this is going to be the first time in his career that he's raced outside of the state of California. He is one of the top contenders to win this year's Kentucky Derby. Another strong candidate for the Kentucky Derby is Sandman. Sandman is trained by Mark Casse and going to be ridden by Jose Ortiz. This will be this horse's 9th career start. Generally, horses with that many starts this part of the season, they are who they are. They don't have that big jump up for the Kentucky Derby. I generally like to have horses that maybe only have 4 to 6 starts because they still haven't peaked yet. He's a stone cold closer, and by that I mean he's going to be coming from the clouds. This is a horse that never gets involved in the race early and will be flying on the end of it. That style of racing, though, is not conducive to the Kentucky Derby. There's a lot of things that can happen in a race of the distance of the Kentucky Derby, plus the fact that there's 20 horses in the Kentucky Derby. When you're coming from behind, you got to deal with all the traffic. He won the Arkansas Derby in his last race, but that race set up perfectly for him. They went suicide fractions during that race, and by that I mean there was 2 horses on the front end that were going just way too fast in a battle. It set it up for closers, and he was one of the best closers in the country. His strength, well, he's always going to be coming in the stretch. That's good when you're looking at somebody to get on your ticket. His weakness, as I said, is racing style. Deep closers have trouble in the Derby because everything has to go perfect for them. They're at the mercy of the pace. They need a fast fractions or honest fractions at the beginning of the race, and then they got to avoid hitting road traffic with a 20-horse field. This is a horse, although he's going to take some action, not sure he can win this race, but he will be on my exactas and trifectas in the Kentucky Derby. Another horse, Burnham Square. He's trained by Ian Wilkes and going to be ridden by Brian Hernandez Jr. This is a horse that has 6 career starts. He's won 3 times and a 2nd and a 3rd. 5 out of 6 he's hit the board. He won the Holy Bull Stakes at Gulfstream. I actually was there for that race, made a big sweeping move around the last turn, closed and passed everybody in the stretch. That's his racing style. Brian Hernandez is going to be riding him. And the reason I'm going to bring up Brian Hernandez is so many times you get jockeys in the Kentucky Derby that it's their, they haven't won a Kentucky Derby yet, or it's maybe only their 1st or 2nd time that they've ridden in the Derby. Brian Hernandez won last year's Derby on Mystic Dan, so he knows what it takes to win this race. As I said, Burnham Square's a stone closer. That's the problem with him in this race. That's the style that runs into trouble. And his strength is he's always going to be closing in the stretch. He reminds me so much of a horse that just missed winning the Derby last year, and that was Sierra Leone. Came from last or next to last, rallied in the stretch, and just fell short at the wire. This is a horse that will be flying on the end, and if they go fast early fractions, look for him to be picking them up in the stretch. Another horse that intrigues me in this Kentucky Derby field is Tappan Street. He's trained by Brad Cox and going to be ridden by Luis Saez. He's only had 3 career starts, and that really intrigues me. He's gotten better in every start. His 3 starts, he's got 2 wins and a second. Enters this race with just 3 career starts, meaning he is nowhere near peak yet. He's gotten better in every race, and he can take another big jump that first Saturday in May. Has tactical speed. I've talked about that with earlier horses. This means he can leave the gate, survey the situation. If they're going fast fractions out of the gate, he can just set off the pace. If they're going slow, he'll be close to the early fractions so he can pounce on them when they turn for home. Weakness for this horse, the only weakness is he's only got 3 career starts. I feel that's a plus for this horse, but the one problem that you have sometimes with lightly raced colts, this is going to be the biggest crowd he's ever raced in front of. It's going to be the biggest field of horses he's ever raced in, 20. Now, those 2 things are equal to all the horses in a Kentucky Derby. This is uncharted water for all of them. But a horse that's had more starts has a tendency to handle those things better. I'm not saying that Tappan Street can't, but that's the only concern I have with him. I think he's a big contender to win the Kentucky Derby at a price. And lastly, let's talk about Sovereignty. This is a horse that's trained by Bill Mott, Hall of Fame trainer. He's going to be ridden by Junior Alvarado. He's had 5 career starts, 2 wins and 2 seconds. This is another one of those horses that's in my sweet spot for number of starts leading into the Kentucky Derby. We have yet to see his best race. He enters off a second in the Florida Derby. The Florida Derby was won by Tappan Street, and this horse was flying late in this race. The Florida Derby has produced the most Kentucky Derby winners in recent years. This is a great prep race, horses coming through Florida to get to the Kentucky Derby. This is a horse you've got to consider, and especially if you like Tappan Street, you got to like this horse as well, because he was flying on the end of it and just missed beating Tappan Street. His strength is the added distance of the Kentucky Derby. The way he was flying in that Florida Derby tells me that he can get the added distance of the Kentucky Derby. His weakness, he's going to need everything to go right for him, because this is a horse that likes to come from behind, as we said with a couple other of the closers. But I think this horse is the one that's moving forward the most and is going to be a strong contender if he avoids traffic problems. This is a horse that could light up the tote board at a price. And that is my preview of the top 5 contenders that I feel in this year's Kentucky Derby. Now be sure to check back Kentucky Derby week, Wednesday. After the post positions are drawn, we're going to have our full Kentucky Derby show on WagerTalk TV. We'll break the race down in detail. We'll give you live long shots, and we'll actually tell you how to play the race with some exactas and trifectas. Stay tuned for the big Kentucky Derby show next Wednesday at WagerTalk TV.